Bonjour à tous et bienvenue sur Les Mots Magiques, la chaîne du copywriting. Aujourd'hui, pour cette première interview, j'accueille Monsieur Robert Greene. Monsieur Robert Greene, si vous ne le connaissez pas, c'est impossible, je ne comprends pas. Un des plus grands auteurs au monde. Aujourd'hui, on va parler de son nouveau livre, Les lois de la nature humaine, mais vous avez déjà peut-être entendu parler de lui ou vous avez lu ses livres. Regardez, Power, les 48 lois du pouvoir. On a l'art de la séduction. Ensuite, on a eu aussi Stratégie, en français, les 33 lois de la guerre. Un livre coécrit avec 50 Cent, la 50e loi. Et enfin, en 2012, Excellence. Comment atteindre l'excellence dans tout ce que vous faites? Aujourd'hui, Robert Greene revient avec les lois de la nature humaine pour vous aider à en savoir toujours plus dans le business, dans votre vie professionnelle, dans votre vie amoureuse, mais c'est lui qui va nous en parler encore mieux. Robert Greene, bonjour.
Bonjour Sélim, merci bien pour... Oui.
Comment allez-vous?
Très bien, assez bien. Je suis un peu fatigué, mais très bien. Je viens d'arriver de Kiev.
Ça c'est parfait.
Ouais.
Kiev, Paris, tout s'est bien passé. Il
Oui.
faut le savoir, pour ceux qui regardent la vidéo dans très longtemps, on est en pleine épidémie de coronavirus.
Oui, oui.
Et on est là, on est bien, on est en forme.
Ouais.
Tout se passe très très bien. J'aimerais commencer tout de suite dans ce cas-là en parlant des lois de la nature humaine.
Oui, oui.
Une des
Vas-y.
premières lois, c'est la loi de l'irrationalité. On parle de coronavirus, on parle d'emballement populaire partout. Est-ce que tu peux nous expliquer pourquoi c'est aussi important de comprendre la foule? Est-ce que tu peux expliquer pourquoi c'est aussi important de comprendre les instincts animaux qui nous gouvernent?
Oui. Bon, je vais le faire en anglais. Hein?
Of course.
Well, I'm trying to say in that chapter that you might think that you're a rational human being, that you are in control of your life, that you're in control of your thoughts. And I'm saying no, you need to wake up to the fact that your emotions are what control you. That your emotions are almost like a puppet master that hold the strings and make you do what they want. So you're mostly unconscious of what motivates your behavior, which is a rather shocking idea if you wake up one day and you tell yourself, I don't really know why I'm doing this. I don't know why I have this job, why I'm attracted to this woman, why, I don't like this person or whatever is going on in your life. It's because there are other things happening that you're not conscious of. And so I try to explain how the human brain is formed and why this occurs, right? And so I go deeply into the neuroscience of that. So essentially, the human brain is formed in three parts. The lowest part, the most primitive part, is what we call the lizard part of the brain. It governs our automatic responses, right? Things we have no control over. Next above that is the limbic system that controls our emotions. And this is a very ancient system that goes back 500 million years, including the fear response that even reptiles have. And so that's what governs your emotions. And at the very top is the neocortex, the part that controls your thinking and language. And this part that's on the top is the most recent by far. It's only 50,000 years old, really. Okay, language at least. Okay, so it's much weaker. It's much smaller than those parts below. And they don't communicate with each other, right? They come from different parts of the brain. So when you feel an emotion like anger or love or sexual attraction or whatever it is, you try and translate it into words, but the words don't actually capture the reality. You don't really have access consciously to what you're feeling, okay? So you try and come up with a rational explanation why you're angry. It's because that guy said this, that, or that. But you have no idea. It probably has roots in your childhood or has roots in something that happened 2 weeks ago or that morning. You don't really actually see or understand why you're angry or why you're feeling the emotions that you're having. And so this is what makes us irrational, right? We're governed by our emotions and we try and translate it into words that are inaccurate. So for example, an animal feels fear, right? Fear is an emotion, is the oldest emotion of them all. But an animal feels fear, and then the moment that the danger passes, the fear is gone from their system, right? Us, we feel fear and we think about it. We think about it. Whoa, what was that? And it goes on for days and days and weeks and weeks and weeks, and it turns into something much larger than the actual source of the fear, right? So something like coronavirus or a panic or the crash of 2008, we're extremely susceptible to the emotions of other people, to viral effects like that, okay? But we're not aware of where these come from. So the disconnection between your emotions and your thoughts is what makes you an irrational human being. And what I'm trying to tell you is the only way out of this trap, and I have to practice this every day myself, is to analyze your emotions, is to analyze, you wake up in the morning and you're depressed, and you don't know, depression is a common example of this. You don't really know why you're depressed, right? Oftentimes you cannot figure it out, it feels almost physical, okay? But then you'll ascribe it to something simple, you'll come up with an explanation. And I want you to step back and go, maybe it comes from something else. Maybe it comes from something in your childhood, you know? A common thing will be someone isn't responding to your emails, and you get really upset and angry at that person. But maybe your being upset has other roots in it, okay? So step back and analyze yourself. Analyze why you're angry. Analyze why you're upset. You may not figure it out, but at least you won't simply react on it. So the fact that you react on your emotions is what leads to so many of your bad decisions in life.
Ça, c'est compliqué.
Tu peux suivre tout ça?
Analyser tout ça, c'est très très compliqué.
Ouais.
Comment effectivement, quand on est une personne normale, je prends un autre exemple que celui de la dépression, imaginons sur le cas des phobies. La peur de l'avion. La peur de l'avion. There is nothing rational about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, comment tu fais pour te débarrasser de ça? Tu sais que tu es un être conscient, tu sais que tu arrives à réfléchir à tous ces problèmes, et tu sais que quand on te montre de la data et des statistiques, ok, il y a moins de morts tous les ans en avion que sur la route, ou le cancer, ou n'importe quelle autre cause, mais pourtant, tu n'arrives pas à te réguler, tu n'arrives pas à te contrôler. Comment on fait?
Tu as cette peur?
Non, pas moi.
Okay,
No, I can fly.
I had that fear once. I was in Vienna in 2002 in a theater, and there was a fire scare, and everyone panicked and ran out, and I was trapped, I couldn't leave. And then suddenly I developed claustrophobia, and I couldn't fly, I couldn't get in a crowded elevator, I felt terrible. Yes, these are things that are controlled by the lowest part of the brain, the autonomic system. You can't control that. If you suffered a trauma when you were 2 or 3 years old, you have no control over that. So the only solution for something like claustrophobia is you put yourself back in those situations. You try and fly again, but you don't fly from New York to Singapore. You fly from New York to Washington, D.C. or to Boston for half an hour, and you realize, it's not so bad, okay? So you confront your fears, right? So that's one way to do that. You accustom your body to those situations that normally you can't control. But most of the emotions I'm talking about aren't so profound like that. They aren't so put into your blood system, to your nervous system, like claustrophobia. Most of them that we're dealing with are day-to-day annoyances, frustrations, angers, you know, things we're excited by something and we end up the next day kind of regretting that we were excited by it. These are the kinds of things that happen every day, right? And so it's not easy. I'm not saying it's simple, but once you start doing it, it becomes a practice, right? And you step back and you go, why am I feeling this way? All right? So, I mean, I'm going to give you a personal example for me. I know I have a problem in life, right? It's that I try too hard to please people, to make them feel comfortable with me. And I noticed yesterday I was doing that, and it was making me a little bit upset, right? And then I go, where does that come from? And then I realize it comes from my relationship with my mother. And I know this very well. I know it very well. She was somebody, she's never going to see this, I hope. She was somebody who I was a bit cold and distant, right? And I had to almost take care of her. And so I grew up with a fear of displeasing my parents. such a powerful fear of displeasing that my sense of control comes from pleasing people. So I tend to over-please people. And I've learned this over the years, and I've controlled it and stopped it, but I found myself doing it yesterday. And I had to go back and go, why am I doing this? Why am I feeling these emotions? Why am I upset at this person when really it comes from me? Okay? So that's sort of the process, to understand things that come from your early childhood, or that comes from, look at your love relationships, because they're often the best signs of that, right? You know, for example, do you have a pattern of breaking off a relationship before the other person does, right? Which is a common pattern I've noticed in a lot of young men, or, you know, and I know I had it first. It's because you're trying to avoid the pain of the other person breaking it off. But you don't see it that way in the moment. You blame the other person, you blame the woman for not being adequate, for not being someone, for not being caring enough, but actually it stems from your own patterns. So the ability to understand your patterns from things that happened to you in childhood, from the real source of your frustrations and why you're upset, give you the power to see them in your day-to-day life, in the office, in your daily interactions.
And can set you free of the usual failures of breaking up for almost no reasons.
Yeah.
That can. I want to take the book because I have a question for you. The question that viewers can have: who is it for? Who did you write the book for?
Mm-hmm. I wrote the book for every single human being, past the age of 14 maybe, although you could read it when you're younger than that. I mean, who wouldn't it be for? Can you tell me who it wouldn't it be for? Because
for somebody who think that they know everything and they have everything figured out.
Like Donald Trump, maybe?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're not going to want to read the book. There's nothing I can do about it. But I wrote the book with the thought in mind that this applies to everyone. So, I mean, a problem I had was, you know, most of the books and the stories written out there are written from a male point of view. So I don't want to write a book about human nature that's very male-centric. But I can't help it because I am a man. So I tried as much as I could to understand, reading books, female psychology, and having stories in there about women, and talking to women about their own experiences, to sort of bring that element in. So, you know, you could say, well, it's more for men. And I happen to know that this is a book that's actually appealing a lot more to women than to men in general. And then the other thing is people from different cultures. You know, they're not going to have the same experience as me. So, you know, maybe there are some limits to how far I can go. But I wanted to go so deeply into the roots, the racines of human nature that go back 500,000 a million years ago, that we all sprang from, men, women, all different cultures, that the truth of what I'm getting at applies to everyone.
I think this is really for everyone who wants to improve their social relationships. And there is one thing.
I mean,
dis-moi.
So one example I just thought of, you know, like a common example that we all have is you feel angry at someone because they didn't respond to your email, or they're taking a day late to respond, or they responded in a way that pisses you off. And your first reaction is to write back and write something, and then the next day you kind of regret it. You go, why did I do that? You know, I wish I could take it back. And so I tell everyone a very simple exercise you can do tomorrow is every time you get in that situation, don't write that email, or write it and don't send it, and look at it the next day or 48 hours later and you go, what was I thinking? With some distance, you can stop yourself. These are some simple exercises that you can put into practice in your daily life.
This is very complicated when you're acting emotional, you know, when en français on dit réagir à chaud, réagir sur le moment. Okay? Et ça, c'est vrai que c'est très compliqué quand tu reçois une mauvaise nouvelle ou quand quelqu'un t'attaque. Comment tu fais pour avoir cette maîtrise de toi-même? Comment tu fais pour rester calme? Comment tu fais pour ne pas endommager toutes ces relations que tu as mis du temps à bâtir in 1 second, avec un mauvais email? Parce que je fais ma solution, j'écris pas un email, je l'écris sur Word. Okay? Comme ça, it takes more steps to send this.
Très bonne idée.
Voilà.
Ouais.
j'essaie de me contrôler. Ça me fait du bien de lâcher mes sentiments comme ça et d'écrire vraiment You're a stupid fucking asshole because I waited for half an hour in front of the restaurant and you never showed up and you didn't even send a text to apologize. Fuck you, you know?
And you didn't send it?
No, I didn't send it because I was like, okay, I'm going to wait. I'm going to see the kind of excuse they're going to come with.
Right.
Nothing, silence.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, peut-être je vais les ignorer, ça ira mieux. Je n'ai pas besoin de m'abaisser, tu vois, à ce genre de choses. Et ça, j'ai envie d'enchaîner avec la loi 3, la loi de la persona. Découvrez ce qui se cache derrière le masque. This is one of the most difficult things in the world. Knowing how to judge people. Qui est derrière Robert Greene? What is he thinking? What does he want? Pourquoi c'est important? Pourquoi elle est importante, cette loi de la persona?
Well, it's because people don't reveal the truth about themselves. Words lie. People lie all the time with their language. They don't really want it. We're always in a situation, in social situations, where we feel something, but we don't want to tell the truth, right? We want to say, God, that person's looking a little bit overweight today, or they don't look so good. But we can't say that. We say, you look wonderful. Or they wrote a book and we thought it wasn't very good. We can't say that, oh, your book was great, your screenplay was wonderful, right? Or, you know, all sorts of social situations like that. You have to be careful with your words, and we do it by second nature, right? There are some people who can't control it and they get in a lot of trouble. But to be a social being, you have to be very careful with your words. And since the age of 5 or 6, we're trained that way, right? And the problem with us is that we judge people by the words that they say. We listen only to what they say, and then we think that that's the truth. But actually something else is going on in their minds, and we have no access to that. But actually, we have tremendous access to what's going on behind their minds. It's the second, I call it the second language, which is non-verbal language. So you can, Sélim, you can control what you say. You can say, Robert, I think your book is great.
I love it.
But your eyes and your face and your body language, they don't lie. They can't lie because you can't control that. An actor, a really consummate actor, a Brad Pitt or whomever you want to think, or a Robert De Niro, maybe they can arrive at a point where they could disguise it fairly well. Although with people who work for like the FBI, they could see through that as well. But you, normal human being, you can't control that. Your tone of voice gives you away. You could say, Sélim, I loved your last book, but my tone of voice is kind of fake.
Yeah, it was fake.
I'm just joking here, this is an example. But the tone of voice, it didn't have that, you know when someone has an excited tone of voice. You know when someone really likes you, their eyes light up. The face is an incredible sign, right? It's not just, people are used to giving the fake smile, you know.
Especially in the States, maybe, you know? This is what we are taught.
Yeah, Americans are much more polite. French people, they don't give a fuck. Right?
I think so, yeah.
I think so. But, you know, even French people will have the tight smile, right?
Thank you.
It means nothing. It means the opposite, right? When there's a real smile, the whole face lights up, the eyes light up, the cheeks move. There's signs of it, right? You're missing this language. You're in the office, you're dating this woman, or for women, you're dating this man, and you're not paying attention to all that. You're missing 90% of what they're telling you about their real emotions. How stupid is that? It's like, you know, you're deliberately ignoring what the most important pieces of information. And it's not just the eyes, and it's not just the voice, it's the whole body. You know, a common situation is somebody comes up to you at a party or something, and they're talking to you, and you know, you think things are fine. Look at where their feet are pointing. Are their feet pointing at you, or are they pointing at an angle? That's a common sign that they're kind of looking elsewhere and they can't wait to move away from you. But are they facing you? Is their body, their whole torso in front of you? Are they looking you in the eye? That shows you the degree of connection that they have. And you don't need to know all this information for dirty purposes. It's just going to help you get along with people better, right? Because so many times the problems you have with people is you misunderstand them. You have a meeting. You want to sell your great film to Netflix, right? Believe me, I know all about this. My girlfriend in Los Angeles works in Hollywood, okay? So I know all the story. Oh, we love your film. We're going to work on it. And then she never hears anything days or weeks later, okay? Because people always say that they like your idea, but there are other signs that reveal that they're not. So wouldn't it help to know the degree of their interest in your ideas? Well, you have all kinds of signs like I've just revealed. This is an incredibly important chapter, right? Because it gives you access to so many things. It will get rid of so many miscommunications in your life. I mean, so for instance, the other day I was watching President Macron on the television.
Yeah.
And I was going, wow, this guy's nonverbal communication is really weird. He tries to appear kind of tough and in control, but he looks so weak. His facial images, his mouth, the way he talks, he seems afraid, but he's trying to appear tough. You know, you could say something like about Donald Trump like that. His are a little harder to read, although you can read incredible amount of insecurity on him too. But I was going, Macron has this kind of weird discrepancy between what he says and his facial images. I don't know if there's anybody in France who's ever tried to analyze it.
Sometimes you have people like Jean Sommer, a vocal coach,
Yeah.
you know, who is working on this, and there have been a lot of memes on the internet about Emmanuel Macron. Parce que c'est notre projet!
Oui.
And you hear the voice going extra pitchy, you know,
Right,
it's very weird to see that, because maybe it doesn't project that much confidence, what you would expect from a poised president,
Right.
you know. So I don't know, what were the images, like le salon de l'agriculture, maybe?
You mean what I saw on television? Yeah. I don't remember. It has to do with the coronavirus. And you need to keep calm, and we're completely in control, right? I think that's what it was. I don't know. I'm not sure. But what I was reading off of his face was insecurity and fear, but the words weren't saying that.
Interesting.
And I never thought that before, that there was something kind of weak about him. But I was really picking that up, you know? And I think the French public has been picking this up for several years now. It's kind of caused a problem. There's a discrepancy between his words and the reality.
We should maybe watch him with mute, you know, and just watch the body language.
That's something very good that you bring up. I tell people to do that all the time when you're watching television. Put the mute button on and you'll see that second language that I'm talking about. You'll see it much more clearly.
Well, we'll see. We will send the video to Emmanuel Macron and l'Élysée. We will see what they say. There is another law that I really like, which is connaître ses limites. La loi de la mégalomanie. If I remember correctly,
that's your problem, right?
You know, I love myself too much. I think that I can do everything, and no, it's not possible. The thing is, it was about Eisner working for Paramount and then Disney. Can you talk about it a little bit so that the viewers can understand why it's important not to be a megalomaniac?
Well, I don't think anybody thinks it's good to be a megalomaniac. So the word in English is actually a little better than megalomaniac. It's grandiosity in English. Grandiose.
Grandiose, yeah.
When I was writing this book, Donald Trump was rising in power, and I was thinking a lot about Donald Trump, but I couldn't write about him. So Eisner is kind of like a Donald Trump. Basically, he was an incredibly successful producer, first in television, and then he became the head of Paramount Pictures in the 1970s. He produced hit after hit after hit, and this young guy rose to the top at a very early age. He had the golden touch, the Midas.
Yes, sure.
Okay, and he became incredibly powerful. He was the most powerful man in Hollywood, and that's something. That says something, because Hollywood's a pretty powerful place, right? At the age of in his 30s still. And then, but he's very ambitious. He wants more and more and more. And so there's a job that's opening up at Disney. And at the time, Disney was a really crappy studio. It had a great name, but it hadn't any success at all. And Eisner's thinking, wow, if I go to Disney, I could be the king of that realm. I'll have complete control, and I'll turn this into such an amazing company that I'll be even more powerful in Hollywood, right? And which is a very smart decision. So he goes to Disney, and he completely rescues this moribund studio. So imagine you're in the place of this man. He's had the success in his 20s as television. Then he turns around Paramount Studios. He's more successful. Now he goes to Disney, and he's even more successful. So what is he thinking? He's thinking he's a god. He's thinking, I can do anything I want, right? I am perfect. I'm more than human. He's not literally saying that, but that's unconsciously. So what is his next step? I'm going to develop a new park, a new Disneyland in Europe. It's going to be Euro Disney. And this is going to be the greatest thing that the world has ever seen. You know, because in Europe you have real castles, and here we're going to make castles at Euro Disney that look like those real castles. It'll be bigger than anything, and I'll be the architect of it. He's in there designing the whole thing. He's in there making decisions about it. And it was the hugest flop ever. It was a disaster. The French people hated Euro Disney when it came out. They wouldn't serve wine and beer. It had all this American food in it. The castle looked totally fake, right? It was a disaster. It cost Disney billions of dollars. It brought the whole company down. Everything that he built was starting to go down, and things started getting worse and worse and worse. He kept making decisions based on the idea that nothing he could do could go wrong. He found other scapegoats, bouc émissaires, for the fall of Euro Disney. He never did anything wrong. He then started developing films in the 90s that were disaster after disaster after disaster, because he was still living in the past, and he thought he had the golden touch. Until finally he had to quit in the early 2000s. They got rid of him, right? But basically, the success that he had made him think that he could do anything. He could run Euro Disney. He could, do anything in the studio, in the film business. He didn't realize that he had limits. He also didn't realize that he had luck. Yeah. He lucked into the job at Paramount at a certain point. He had one good idea, but it wasn't like everything wasn't because of him. He also had Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was his right-hand man at Disney, who was really the one who was in charge and was really the one responsible for all the greatest success in the animation department, etc. And he ignored all of that. So the idea is that success is often the worst thing that can happen to you, right? And that's why in hip-hop, for instance, we talked a lot about this with 50 Cent, you have one-hit wonders. You have people who have their one great song, their one great album, and you never hear of them again. I could list 50 of those kind of groups like that off the top of my head, or rock bands. That's because they're 21 years old. They have an album that's suddenly selling millions of records. They're partying, they have all these great girls, they can do whatever they want. Then the second album, they think they'll just kind of repeat the same thing, and it doesn't have doesn't have the same flavor, or the same amount of work in it, and it bombs, and their life just goes downhill very quickly. So success is the worst thing in the world, because normally, I say in the book, I hope you're going to have a good translator for all this, because I'm talking very fast.
No, don't worry, I'll be the translator,
okay.
So it will be okay.
Okay. Normally, we humans are never really in touch with reality. I like to say, if the reality is that ground, we're like here. We think that we're better than we are. We think that we're smarter than the truth. We think that we're more moral and nicer than really is the reality. We are probably pretty nice. We are pretty smart. But we go a little higher than the truth. But as you have success, you go like this, you go like this, you go like this, you go like this. Soon you're way up there, right? You're so divorced from reality that you'll start making bad decisions and bad things will happen, and you'll come crashing down like Icarus in the myth, like Iker, right? Right?
How do you avoid situations like that? How do you avoid? Well, because they say you learn from your mistake, but okay, so you just said, he didn't learn anything from winning again and again. So how do you surround yourself, maybe? How do you impose rules on yourself?
Well, you brought up a good point, because also what happens when you're successful is other people become your followers, and they start reflecting that. because it's like a court. They're like sycophants, and they say, yes, Mr. Eisner, you are wonderful. Yes, Mr. Eisner, you're a god. And you take that for being true, when in fact they're just being political, right? So you have to realize that people who are praising you are sometimes being political, and they're not telling you the truth. I'm not saying that about you. Well, you know, you have, this whole book is about being aware, right? Don't be so stupid. Don't be in your head all the time. Think. So think when you have success, concentrate on the element of luck. Concentrate on the element of other people who helped you. Concentrate on the fact that your next project could very well be a disaster. Don't be a little more humble about it, right? I don't mean to talk about myself so much in this because I have plenty of mistakes that I made. But I wrote my first book, The 48 Laws of Power. And before that, I was just a bum living in Santa Monica in a tiny apartment, right? I had no success. I was nobody. Suddenly I had all this success, right? And I could feel the drug coursing through my blood. I could feel it changing me. I could feel me becoming maybe not so nice anymore, not so humble. And then I had to write my second book, The Art of Seduction. And I got afraid of myself, and I said, your next book is probably going to fail, right? I could sense that you're just trying to repeat the success of the 48 Laws of Power. Just understand that your success is not guaranteed. 90% of people who write one good book, their second book generally sucks. It's a common phenomenon, right? Because you don't care so much.
Same for the music.
Yeah. Okay. You don't have the same energy. You're not so desperate. You have to be desperate a little bit. You have to be constantly hungry. You also have to be a little bit neurotic and think, well, maybe I'm not so good. Maybe I will fail. I really need to up my game each time, right? So you have to be aware of that sense of being lifted off the ground and constantly realize what you're doing could be wrong. You could be setting yourself up for a trap. And don't listen to what people say about you, have some humility about that. People who are praising you might have a reason for praising you.
This is complicated traps to avoid, I imagine. There is maybe one more law I would like to talk to you about. Avancer en ayant un sens dans la vie. La loi du désœuvrement. This one is about, I think the example was about Martin Luther King, Yeah. And I want you to talk about it because maybe it can help people who are looking for meaning in life, people who are looking for, I don't know, jobs, a career. They don't know what to do right now. What could you tell them?
Well, it's sort of what my other book, Mastery, was about, but that's a chapter that's devoted to that subject. Well, it's a very common experience for human beings, and I explain it in the following way. Animals operate by instinct. They're kind of programmed what to do during the day, and we have transcended that. We don't have any instincts that tell us what we need to do. We have no guide in life. We wake up in the morning, and yeah, we want to eat, and we want to take care of basic things, but there's nothing in our heads telling us what we need to do. And it can be extremely dangerous, right? So, when you get to the age of 18 or 22 and you're thrown out into the world, you're not with your parents anymore, where do I go? What is my life? What's my next decision? What job do I take? Who do I associate? What city do I live in? Nobody tells you what to do. Your teachers in school don't tell you to do. Your parents, yes, but you try not to listen to your parents because you want to rebel against them. You want to be your own self. You have no radar in your head telling you what you should do, where you should go, and it can be very dangerous, right? So you'll kind of float through your 20s. You'll try this job and go for things that are fun, and this job, it's kind of fun. And then you do another job that's kind of fun. And now you're 30 years old, and you're going, what do I do? What do I do with that? I mean, I had some adventures, I had some fun, but I'm not getting, jobs aren't paying me enough. The world is changing. I want to maybe have something a little more settled. I want to make more money. And you don't know where to go because you've been wandering through your 20s. and you've been having fun, but there's been no direction. Okay? So I want you to avoid that trap. I don't want you to not have fun. I had fun in my 20s, believe me.
Me too.
Okay. So I want you to have fun, but I want there to be some direction in your life so that when you get into your 30s, now I maintain your early 30s are your most productive creative years. That's when the most scientists make the best inventions, discoveries, when novelists write their greatest novels, right? My most successful book I wrote when I was 36, not when I'm like 60 now, okay? So there's some truth to that. So I want you to be able to, when you reach your 30s, you can now start that business, you can now write that book, you can now, do this television show or whatever, and be extremely successful and happy and fulfilled. But it has to start when you're in your early 20s. So the process is knowing something about who you are, right? And the story I give in there, which I hope humanizes this, is of Martin Luther King, who we think of as this incredibly powerful person who led this amazing movement. And none of that's false, it's very true. But I show you in the book how as a young man, he was full of fear and doubt. He didn't know what he was meant to do in life. His father told him that he should, become a preacher and just preach in the church that his father was a preacher, just follow in his footsteps, have a nice, easy, comfortable life. And he wasn't comfortable with that. And he didn't know what to do. And then he finally decided he wanted to actually be involved in a movement with people that was more risky, because he understood the situation that black people had in America. And he arrived in the city of Birmingham. It was Montgomery, his first city. And he got in trouble. Things were getting very dangerous. He was getting threats on his life. He had a wife and a child. And one night he couldn't sleep, and he realized he had no idea what he was doing. And he was crying, and he was so upset with himself. And he goes, I don't know where I am in life. Give me some direction. And he started praying to God, and he suddenly heard a voice in his head saying, Martin, you're doing the right thing. This is what you were meant to do in life. And he heard that voice, and it kind of stayed with him the rest of his life. And he followed his own path. Now, I'm not saying this is a religious thing, but I'm saying you have a voice inside of you that's actually going to point you in the right direction, and you have to listen to it. And you do have that radar inside that can guide you in life, but you have to know, you have to be able to connect to it. And what is that? It's what makes you a different person, what makes you unique. So when you were a child, you were probably attracted to some kind of thing that you can't even explain. For me, when I was 5 or 6 years old, I was entranced with words. Nothing, no literature. I wasn't reading Jean-Paul Sartre when I was 8 years old. It was just words and language. And just playing with words fascinated me, right? But I have stories in there of other people like that, And so there was probably something when you were very young that made you super excited. That's part of that voice inside of you that's indicating what you were naturally drawn to. And as you get older, you listen to other people. You listen to your parents. You listen to your friends. You listen to teachers. You listen to what's cool out there. And you lose touch with who you are. Okay, but so what I want you to do is when you're 22, to go through a process and try and figure out what it is that you were meant to do, what it is that you love to some degree. And now you can go experiment, now you can go have fun, you can try different jobs, but you're not working at Starbucks, and then you're not working at this other place, that you're not trying different things that have no relation to each other. There's a sense of direction. You know that you want to get into the sciences because that's where your mind is. So you choose a job that is somewhat related, may not be exactly the science that excites you the most, but is related to it. And then you try another job and another job. But something that's, you don't go for, the classic thing is, I'm going to become a lawyer because it pays well, because my parents told me to. And lawyers, if you don't feel like that's something that you really want to do, it's a very common scenario that by the time you're 36, you hate your job, you start drinking, you start having affairs, you become a drug addict, and your life goes down the pipes because it's not something that connects to you here. So you have to go through a process of finding your calling in life, what you were meant to do, what gives you a sense of purpose, gives you a sense of direction, so that in your 20s, you're having fun, but it's within a framework. So for me, that meant I wanted to be a writer. I worked in journalism in New York. I then went to Europe, and I was, going from job to job in Europe, trying to write a novel, which didn't work out. Then I went back to Hollywood. It was kind of fun and exciting, parties, etc. I wrote screenplays. That didn't work, right? But I was having fun, but I was learning how to write. There was a sense of direction. It wasn't that I was trying to be a construction worker and then a musician or something. I was writing, and then when I got the chance to write a book, it all came together. So that's sort of more or less what I'm talking about.
D'accord, donc ça commence vraiment quand on a la vingtaine, se poser les questions sur ce qui nous parle vraiment, pour tous les gens qui se cherchent à partir de la vingtaine. La dernière, après j'arrête, mais alors, il y a 18 lois dans ce livre. Là, j'ai envie de parler d'une dernière encore, parce que on va parler un peu de leadership. Comment faire en sorte, parce que ce livre, c'est les lois de la nature humaine, comment faire pour que les autres nous suivent, pour que les autres adhèrent à notre vision, pour qu'ils aient envie de nous aider à atteindre nos objectifs et nos rêves. C'est la loi numéro 15 qui s'appelle « Donnez-leur envie de vous suivre ». En français, la loi de l'inconstance.
Ouais.
Comment on fait pour motiver des gens qui sont différents de nous?
Ouais. Well, so this goes back to the other chapter that we talked about on nonverbal behavior. So a leader has a certain tone, has a certain attitude that will permeate the whole group. I compare it to if you've ever gone horseback riding, and you know this feeling that the horse can sense your body language. If you're nervous, that horse becomes nervous and it can do some very dangerous things. If you're calm, the horse becomes calm. And it's not exactly the same thing as a leader. I don't want to compare people to a horse. But people can sense who you are by your attitude, by how you comport yourself, by your body language. So you have to be aware that you as a leader are setting a tone. Human beings are very open to the emotions of others. We're very susceptible to viral effects. So how you carry yourself, your own insecurities, your own fears, your own paranoia, your own doubts, will infect the whole group. So you have to be aware and you have to be conscious of the fact that how you feel about yourself, other people are going to sense and they're going to be influenced by that. You need to control that. So that's the first thing. The second thing you have to understand, particularly nowadays, when I talk about l'inconstance, is that people are very dubious of leaders. They have suspicions of leaders. On the one hand, we want a leader, we need someone to lead the group. On the other hand, we resent the fact that they're the one who have all the power, that they have all these privileges. So the people that you're leading, they're smiling at you, they're saying they love you, but that's not necessarily the truth. There's probably more ambivalence there than you think, right? So you need to be aware of that as well and not simply take all of the praise and approval that they give you for the reality. At the first moment when you make a mistake, they'll turn on you, right? Okay, so how do you prevent that? How do you prevent these common mistakes? Well, the first thing is you have to be someone that you don't have to have a sense of entitlement. That just because you're a leader, you deserve people respecting you, you deserve people to obey you. You have to earn their respect. You have to work hard at earning, you have to show them that you're worthy of respect. So you have to work harder than they work. You have to have very high standards, right? And you have to be very fair in how you treat people. So people are watching you every moment of the day and they're thinking, if he doesn't respect me or she, why should I respect him or her, right? So if you show people that you respect them, that you treat them as individuals, that you're thinking about them and their fate, they'll respond in a similar way. Now, I don't mean to be naive about this. There are going to be people in the office or in your place who aren't maybe team players. They're thinking about they're selfish. And you need to be very aware of that. There's some dangerous people in the group. But most people aren't like that. Most people, if you treat them with respect, if you show them that you like them, you're interested in their fate, you listen to their stories, you listen to their ideas, they'll respond that way. They won't think that you're weak because you're going to be a strong leader, and I have other things in there. You have to show strength. But if you show that you respect them and you're thinking about them as an individual, it's an incredibly powerful effect you can have on them, right? The other thing is, a leader has to have a vision, right? You have to have an idea of where the group is headed. And that vision has to be something that's powerful, has a mythic edge to it. So let's say you, Sélim, have started a new magazine or a new television show or whatever, right? You want to frame this to the people you're leading as if this is going to do something great for the world, as if you're going to change the world, as if this is something that's going to really bring like the voice of millennials into power, right? You're going to do something important, right? I don't know for what cause or whatever. That's a very powerful effect on people because people want to join a cause. So you have to have a vision of what you're going to change, how you're changing the world, and where you're going to be in 3 or 4 years. And that attracts followers, right? So, you know, in general, it's you have to be aware that you're setting the tone. People are looking and scrutinizing your every action. They're constantly judging you. Their words of praise don't mean anything. You have to go out and earn their respect. You have to earn their respect by how you treat people and by the sense that you're a leader, that you have an idea of where the group is headed, right? More or less. I mean, there's more ideas in there.
Ça fait beaucoup, c'est ça, c'est qu'il y a vraiment beaucoup d'idées, il y a vraiment beaucoup d'exemples dans les lois de la nature humaine. Is there one which is your favorite? Do you have one loi de la nature humaine préférée? Well, is there one that is very, very important, and if we need to wrap this interview up, is there anything that you want to talk about?
Yeah, chapter 8. Chapter 8 is about your attitude. What's the word for attitude in French?
L'attitude. C'est aussi en français, bien sûr. Ton attitude, écoute, changez la loi, changez la situation en changeant votre façon de penser. Oh. Et c'est la loi du sabordage. Ouais. Tu vois, se saborder, genre, on coule le bateau. Hop là.
D'accord, oui. Well, the idea is that, as I said before, we think that everything is about words and what we say, but it's not. It's about how we feel. That's what communicates the most between human beings. And your attitude is an incredibly important form of communication. So if you feel that you're not worthy of something, you kind of doubt yourself, people smell that on you. They smell your insecurity. And I know you can't help it. All of us have insecurities. I have insecurities. And I don't mean to judge it negatively, but just realize that people smell that, and it makes them uncomfortable as well. It makes them insecure and defensive, right? On the opposite, or if you feel very anxious, you make other people feel very anxious, on and on and on. So your attitude has an incredibly powerful effect on other people and how they respond to you. And you can't completely control it, but you can control it to some degree. So if you're aware that when you're going into a negotiation situation or you're being interviewed for a job, the fact that you feel very insecure and defensive people are going to read that off you, and it's going to be a problem. So you have to learn how to alter your attitude, right, about yourself and about the world. And and I talk in the book about how you can do that, because it's not something you can wake up suddenly and do. Well, some of the important things that you could do is part of the things that ruin your attitude towards life or lower it are past experiences and traumas and heartaches and failures and the criticisms of other people, right? They're the ones that make you doubt yourself, make you feel insecure, and make you feel defensive. And I want you to try and practice on an everyday basis of letting go of the past, of letting go of those hurts that you've had in the past, and simply dropping them from your life and learning to forgive people and to say, and just tell yourself these scripts in your head. That person who hurt me, wasn't really aimed at me. They have their own problems. I'm going to forget about that. I'm going to forget about the problems with my parents or people in my life. I'm going to learn to forgive them. I'm going to have some empathy. And to the degree that you can drop some of these early patterns, some of these traumas, you can have a definite effect on your attitude. The other thing is, I want you to kind of embrace all of the circumstances that happen to you. So I know, for instance, for me that's not been an easy thing because I've had a major trauma in my life and I've had to learn to accept that this is my new reality. But to the degree that you can stop kind of hating things that happen to you and accepting your circumstances, you now have the power to alter them. So people who I talk in the book about a self-fulfilling dynamic. I don't know if
une dynamique auto-réalisatrice, un peu
Right.
comme tu sais, une prophétie auto-réalisatrice. Tu
Yeah.
décides de penser quelque chose et ça va devenir vrai.
Right. So a common thing is, if you think that you are worthy of something great, that you were destined to create something great when you were born, it translates into other people feeling that off of you, right? I have a law in 48 Laws of Power called Act Like a King to be Treated Like One. And I had in my talk, I talked about someone like Elon Musk, right? And Elon Musk is a guy who has an incredible sense of belief in himself. He believes that he can get anything that he puts his mind to, he'll be successful with. And I talk in my talk about Tesla Motors and how it really looked like he was going to fail miserably, right? And people were telling me it was going to be a disaster, right? But the fact that he believed in it so much and he had this incredible charisma meant that other people believed in him and started buying his stock, Tesla. And the price of the stock was way overvalued, but it doesn't matter. It gave him enough money, he raised enough money to make the company solvent and make it profitable. So his self-belief translated into other people believing in him, which translated into money, which translated into success he's having. If he were someone that were doubting himself and listened to other people, Tesla would have gone under. So the difference between success and failure for him was his attitude, right? I talk also about 50 Cent. You know, he came from the worst circumstances you can imagine. He was a drug dealer, a hustler in Southside Queens. All of his friends are either dead or in prison when he was growing up. What was the difference between him? He believed when he was 9 or 10 years old that he was going to be incredibly successful. He didn't know in what. He thought maybe in business or something. But he knew that he was destined for something great. His mother, who died when he was 9 years old, was constantly telling him that. And so he grew up with this idea that, man, I'm going to be something great. And other people around him believed it, they felt it in him, and they started following him, and it translated into power. So your degree of how you think about yourself will translate into changing what happens to you, changing how people respond to you, change, into the degree of success that you have in life. And to some extent, you can control it. You can change your negative attitude. I compare a negative attitude, so when we look at the world, our attitude is like a lens, right? We don't see the world as it is. We see it colored by how we view the world. If we're defensive, we see fears everywhere. Coronavirus here, disaster over here, that kind of thing. All right? And when that happens, that lens gets smaller and smaller and smaller. You're seeing less of the world. You're only seeing this. Okay? That's a negative attitude. It closes your mind. It closes your eye up. To the degree that you can open your mind up and not have these fears and not have these doubts and start accepting the world, then that lens will open up and your attitude will become what I call expansive, right? And so you have to confront some of these fears that you have in life. We live in very chaotic times, right? Things are changing very quickly, right? You don't really know, like trends are changing quickly. Ideas are changing, politics is changing, it's very chaotic. And to the degree that your mind is closed, you're going to miss taking advantage of that chaos at the time. You're not going to have interesting ideas because your mind is only like that. And one thing you have to do is you have to accept the chaos of this world. You have to move with it. You can't control everything. Don't try and control everything. Drop your fears and kind of accept it and have an open attitude. Have an open attitude towards ideas of other people. Listen to something. Don't go always to the same websites. Don't always listen to the same people. Open your mind up to some new ideas. Open your mind up to the chaos of our times. Because there are amazing things going on in the world right now, and your fearful attitude is closing you off to them. That was the last thing I wanted to say.
This is great because, you know, we could go on and now talk about Danton and seize the moment, you know. This is where you're going, but
that's right.
We will let you guys find out in the book, because Les lois de la nature humaine is very great si vous voulez apprendre des choses. Tu vois, c'est encore ma version avant les corrections. C'est la version que j'ai lue l'été dernier. Et je ne peux que vous le recommander si vous voulez vous améliorer dans la vie, être un meilleur être humain, mieux travailler dans le business, être un meilleur manager. Dans tous les cas, cette curiosité, ayez la curiosité de lire, de trouver de nouvelles idées. Monsieur Robert Greene, merci beaucoup pour ce moment, merci pour cette interview.
Non.
Et je vous souhaite un très très bon séjour ici
beaucoup,
à Paris.
Sélim. Oui, merci.
Qu'est-ce qu'on dit? Les lois de la nature humaine, disponibles aux éditions Alizio. See you soon, merci à tous, à bientôt, au revoir.
À bientôt, au revoir.